No. Oh well. Welcome back. This week I've got something a bit different. I'm going to be reading through my personal statement from when I applied to university. It's quite a long time ago now, but we are going to go for it. You're probably thinking, personal statements? It's March. I agree. If you're in year 12 and thinking about applying to university next year, you've got a long time before you need to write a personal statement. But I thought it'd be good fun to just go through it. This will be the first time I've read my personal statement since I actually wrote it, since I actually applied to university. So could be quite interesting. I also made the massive investment to my channel to use real ink and real paper to print it off. Admittedly, the paper is not new. It is scrap paper. It's got a map of Oxford on the back. But I did feel like this was a big step forwards in how much I want to invest into this channel. So let's go for it. I've just realised that while I thought that this was quite an original idea, it actually isn't. A lot of people have already done it on YouTube, but I've made the investment, I've printed the paper, so we're going to go for it anyway, and hopefully it'll be enjoyable. Yeah, so let's crack on. Foreign languages are a gateway to so much more than speaking a new tongue, and this is part of the reason why French and Spanish attract me. A new tongue? Guess I didn't want to say language twice in one sentence. I'm not sure why. But I guess strong opening. I mean, it worked. Let's just carry on. Let's see what happens. The ability to communicate in another language with native speakers offers a unique opportunity to be truly understood and to feel a deep connection with another culture. Now, I actually still agree with this. I think that my outlook on languages hasn't really changed that much. I do agree that speaking a new language allows you to better understand someone of a culture that speaks another language. So, pleased with that one. Over the summer, I read Nor et moi. Now, this doesn't sound that impressive because I was studying it in year 13. So the fact that I put that in as though I did it as extra reading is a bit suspicious. But we'll go with it. I mean, if you fake it, it doesn't really matter as long as you've read it, I guess. Over the summer, I read Nor et moi, and I became thoroughly engaged with the story. True. I felt that its themes of friendship and homelessness would not have been tackled in the same way by an English author. That is also true. I think the closest thing that I can remember to this book was it's on my bookshelf somewhere. Lottery Boy, I think, which I also enjoyed, but it was a lot more adventure-y than this, which presented quite a stark, real depiction of homelessness in Paris, I think, while also having a very nice story. This sparked my curiosity and led me to explore. It did not spark my curiosity. I just read it because I had to. And then, I then read the poetry I'm about to talk about because I felt that I had to. But again, as long as you don't say that, it doesn't really matter. This sparked my curiosity and led me to explore more French literature and to read some French poetry by Benjamin Péret, who fought in the Spanish Civil War alongside the anarchists. Now, having just read a massive book on the Spanish Civil War, I was quite keen to put that in there. And also, I did actually enjoy this poetry quite a lot. I thought it was quite unique and actually very, very interesting. So, let's see what I say. In Épitaphe pour un mouvement aux morts de la guerre, quite a long title for a poem, he denounces a general's decision to send his troops to certain death. This poem is comparable to Tennyson's The Charge of the Light Brigade. However, it differs in that Péret expresses his opinion using repeated irreverent language. Le doigt dans le trou du cul. I don't know if I'm going to bleep that out yet, but it's pretty rude. Quite interesting, actually. I did actually really enjoy this poem, and I thought it was, in fact, this struck me as an interesting cultural difference between English and French writers. In The Charge of the Light Brigade, Tennyson does not almost swear about the commanders that send their troops into battle to almost certain death. So the fact that Benjamin Péret does is quite an interesting cultural difference. And actually, I still agree with what I've said there. So clearly, I was either thinking quite well in year 12, year 13, or I haven't progressed in my thought and my ability to think critically about literature since then. I'm not sure. Let's carry on. Another poem that I found by Péret was Passerelle du Commandant. I felt that in French the inner message was relatively easy to understand, whereas the true meaning of the poem was lost in the Italian translation I was reading. Now you might think that's a bit weird that I was reading an Italian translation, but I was at my grandparents' house in Italy reading this collection of European poetry from the 1900s. So it was an Italian book. It had the French and then the Italian. But I also think that this is true. I think that with translations, it's very hard sometimes to get across the true message of a piece of literature when you're sort of changing the language in it. So let's have a look. The line "Il faut être rond pour mesurer" could mean that one must be rounded to judge others, while the Italian translation lost the significance, being more literal. I believe that this translation was as good as it could be, yet it could not express the poet's message. Attempting to translate this poem into English highlighted the complexity of translation to me. Also true, I did translate it into English, and I found it extremely hard. I'm trying to think where I might have written it down. I could try and look for it, but it's definitely lost. Yeah, bit on translation there. I've had a bit on language in poetry, a bit on translation of poetry. Let's carry on. After researching the Spanish Civil War for contextual information in our Spanish lessons, I felt that there was more to know about the politics surrounding the war, and so I read The Battle for Spain by Anthony Beeville. All true so far? I haven't lied that much, actually. Lots of people told me that they lied in their personal statements, but I haven't. I think it's better not to lie. I wanted to read some poetry from the era, as Beaver regularly mentioned the literature that this terrible war had inspired. I found in Damaso Alonso's Insomnio an insight into what the Civil War had done to Spain and its people. Again, very true. This poem, I would recommend reading it and seeing if you can find an edition where the original structure is maintained, because it has a very, very odd structure with sort of staggered line starts that really highlights the fragmenting effect. I've just taken that off there, by the way. I didn't think of that off my head, that the Civil War had on the Spanish people. I think when you write your personal statement, I mean, I'll do another video at some point on tips for writing your personal statement. I think you really need to connect with what you've read in addition to your schoolwork to be able to produce a personal statement that is sincere to what you actually believe. Okay. Both the questioning tone, talking about the poem by Damaso Alonso, both the questioning tone and irregular rhythm of the poem highlight the fragmenting effect that the Civil War had on the Spanish people. Yeah, the poet seems lost and confused as he talks to God, preguntándole a Dios, ¿por qué se pudre lentamente mi alma?, questioning the significance of life. Trying to do a bit of analysis there and not doing very well. I didn't really say much more than what was already in the poem, but there we go. It was basically a bit of a translation. From reading this poem, I've realised how strongly the Spanish language can convey the true psychological effects of the war, especially when used by someone who experienced the events themselves. Bit tenuous. From this poem by itself, I've managed to figure that out. That's a bit weird, but yeah, it was really quite a powerful poem, I think. Lots of sort of pudre mi alma is quite a gruesome image, almost like a rotting soul. Yeah, it was very, very powerful, and I did really enjoy that poem, actually. So now I believe we move away from literature. I've mainly focused on that because the Oxford course for languages is heavily based on literature, especially in the first year. But now I go on to talk about linguistics, I believe, a little bit, or sort of. Let's have a look. As a bilingual speaker of Italian and English, I have always found it remarkable how language affects the way people communicate. Yeah, as I was talking about before with Benjamin Perret and the way he talks about his sort of the way he insults the commanders, it really does change the way you look at things, language, I think. After attending a lecture at Cambridge University on linguistics in year 12, I'm not sure I was allowed to say Cambridge in this, considering I was applying to Oxford, but oh well. I wanted to explore in more depth how the language you speak affects both the way you think and live. From reading Guy Deutscher's, don't know how you pronounce his name, Through the Language Glass, very good book actually, I did enjoy that, I discovered some of the most eccentric elements of a plethora of different languages. Clearly just really wanted to use the word plethora. Was not necessary, but there we go. One of my favourite sections describes the, apologies, Gugu Yemithir language, let's forget that ever happened, which uses the 4 cardinal directions to describe the position of objects. So they use north, south, east and west to describe objects. So the camera is north of me is what I would say, for instance. Don't ask me how they do it, but they do. Deutscher suggests that this must have consequences on how speakers of this language think and act. Well, yes, obviously. I think, I don't know what I was trying to do at this point, because I did find this harder to talk about, especially when you've got 15,000 characters, I think. Is that the limit? 15,000 characters. No, 1,500 characters is the limit. Was it 4,000 characters? I can't even remember how much you're allowed to write in a personal statement. There's a very limited number of words / characters that you can use. Anyway, I have, from my own experience, I have noticed that it's much easier to express annoyance and anger in Italian. I think this is mainly down to the vocabulary of the language. For instance, the word uffa, which isn't really a word, it's more slang, which conveys frustration, does not have such an effluent counterpart in English. Yeah, uffa in English would be like, oh, for goodness sake, that sort of thing. So you see how in Italian it's much easier to just get a bit frustrated at something. And actually, I think that's the best part of that entire paragraph on talking about different languages. Talking about your own experiences, I think, is much better than trying to decipher quite a complex argument in quite a complex book. Let's go. Studying French and Spanish at university will allow me to deepen my understanding of 2 vastly interesting cultures, while improving my command of both languages. I believe this will undoubtedly help in my career and in a world that is rapidly losing its unity, partially due to language and cultural barriers. There we go. That is the end of my personal statement. I thought it was quite a nice way to close it out. You can tell me differently in the comments. Okay, I think that's it. If you have any questions, as I said, do put them in the comments. Give the like button a nice click if you enjoyed this video. I will at some point also bring out a video with top tips for personal statement writing. I gave you a few there, but wasn't very comprehensive. And if you'd like to see more of me or hear more personal statement-y stuff in the future, please subscribe to this channel. And thanks very much for watching. Stay tuned.